Hey everyone, I'm Steve from GamersNexus.net, and I'm joined by Chris Roberts from Cloud Imperium Games.
Hey everyone, how you doing?
And today we're talking about the FPS module. So we spoke about it a few times now, have gone in depth a bit, and I think the initial launch window was a couple months back. I saw your letter from the chairman. You cited technical and gameplay issues.
So one is sort of the networking aspect of it, and various kind of player lag issues that we're sort of dealing with, because in the FPS we're trying to have 16 versus 16, so 32. So it's a lot more than we have in the Arena Commander, which up until now has only, I think, been 8, so 4 versus 4. The new version, 1.15, which we're going to put on the PTU at the end of this week, will actually be 16 players now, 8v8. So we've actually made some pretty good strides in fixing some stuff. But we've, the FPS side's always planned to have more. I mean, basically the issue is the spaceships are so complicated, they have so many different moving parts that they're much heavier in network traffic than, say, an individual person running around.
Right.
And so that's why we can have more on the FPS side, but we're still having some sort of network backend and sync issues, although I think we're doing pretty good in ironing them out. And then the other aspect is just the animation and the smoothness and the responsiveness of the animation. So we're trying to do something with Star Marine that's a little different than you normally do with most first-person shooters, because most first-person shooters really keep you in first person, and then if you're fighting, a lot of times you're fighting AI, so they're not the players, they do their own different animations. And if you notice in a lot of first-person shooters that do multiplayer, the fluidity of the animation of the other players is not actually nearly as good as what the AI players are. And that's partly because first person for most games is kind of a cheat. The camera's base is, like the arms are right in front of the eyes here and the gun's there. And but because with Star Citizen, it's different than normal FPS, because it's essentially a whole world simulation. So it's not just running around with the gun; it's interacting with stuff. It's flying around in ships, and it's also doing it with other people cooperatively. So if you're sitting in your constellation and you look over to the person sitting next to you and he's in the controls, you need to see him that he's in the controls. And so some cheats that you can do in a first-person game where it's all different. I think people have all seen they've had what Crisis really looks like if you get outside the first-person view and you see the guys all stretched and the cover's all faked and stuff. So we made a conscious decision very early to do it correctly. So we don't unify. We don't separate between first and second. It's all unified. It's essentially the proper animations, the third-person animations drive the first person. So when you're looking around in first person, that is actually where your eyes are looking. When you see your hands, that's actually where your hands really are. If you look down, you see your legs, that's where your legs really are. So it makes things harder because you can't cheat in a lot of different ways. And we also want sort of a fluidity of motion. So a lot of games would be you go strafe left and strafe right and you stop and you instantly stop. Where we want to have this kind of sense of as you really do. If you're moving, you kind of just be off foot and stop. So it's you don't instantly stop, you just have a bit of inertia and come back. If you're sprinting really fast, you're not going to stop on a dime, you probably have a bit of inertia and come back. So there's a lot of sort of transitions that we've been working on that we call jukes, which means I'm going this way and then I juke back. It's sort of see if I can do this real quick. I did this on the FPS set, but so if I've got the gun and I'm going like this, it's back, so my feet are stepping back over each other. And you don't normally have that level of fidelity in a first, because you don't need it in a first person. You're just moving back and forth, and it's all pretty procedural. But we've been working on it. So in third person, if you're watching a character, you'll see this fluidity, and you'll see it for other people. The downside of that is that there's a certain amount of responsiveness that affects, because obviously if you're cheating in first person and you go right, immediately you can start going right. Whereas with us, we've got to make sure the foot's in the right place and the animation starts playing backwards. And so there's lots of bridge and transition animations to do that. And those animations, getting all that working fluidly, getting that to be as responsive as possible, and fighting general things inside the animation system and CryEngine, which is a really powerful animation system but is pretty complicated, have just been sort of taking a fair amount of time for us, and it's mainly because we're trying to do it at a fidelity that you haven't really seen before, and blend the sort of unify first and third person. So we're pretty we've made when I did the update, I didn't give a date because we didn't update in May, which we didn't give a date either. And when we showed it at PAX East, we said we hoped it was going to be out sometime towards the end of April, but don't hold me to it was actually what I said, because we've been burned by this before.
I quoted that in the article.
And so I think everyone's being fairly. We did the update in May, and obviously people have been waiting a long time for it. We are. I mean, there's a large amount of the company, especially now, is working on it. Like all the animators are really working on it, and we've got some extra help from the German studio, which is a bunch of CryEngine experts that we've joined us recently to get it out. So we're trying to get it out as quick as possible. I have a build on my machine over here of both the FPS and what we're doing for Gamescom. So I'm actually in there helping out with some of the coding stuff. But we didn't want to give a date because, we sort of don't want to get burned by that, because if we promise a date and we miss it, everyone gets it. So, but for some reason, this last round, someone said it's been delayed indefinitely, and then next thing you know, people are saying, "Oh, is it cancelled?" And no, it's not cancelled. And in reality, we're probably weeks off. So we're shooting to try and have FPS on the PTU around about Gamescom or slightly after Gamescom. And based on where we are, I think we're kind of close there. There's just some polished stuff, so whether it's plus or minus a week there. But we're really talking about people getting to play around with FPS in a matter of 3, 4, maybe 5 weeks. We're not talking that it's cancelled, that it's delayed indefinitely, or any of the other stuff. And really, the other thing is it's about trying to make it as, we want people to play it and give us feedback, because that helps make the game better. Arena Commander has been made better by people playing and giving feedback, and that's an ongoing process. So that is part of our goal, but there's always a point where there's no point in sharing it until you think internally that it's got enough of the base bits working that the feedback's going to be useful, right? So if you've still got bugs or glitches in the movement going left or right, and it's kind of annoying when you're playing, it's just going to be an annoying experience to play. So those are kind of, so just because we're open development, it doesn't mean that as soon as one programmer gets something up and running that we instantly share it, because we sort of need to go through, make sure a whole bunch of different things work, and then we go, this is in a state that we want to have a larger feedback, and we do that internally anyway. Like, we don't share our stuff with QA right away. Like, someone working on a game system works on it for a bit, says, I think this is good enough, okay, let's have QA test it. And then really we have the next level is, okay, let's have the backers give us some more feedback. So once QA's gone through and we've banged out a bunch of the more annoying bugs and glitches, and we think the experience is still going to have bugs, it's still going to need feedback, it's probably not going to be balanced right, but it's not really annoying. Right. Then when we share it, and that's kind of just the process. And I think, unfortunately, the delays and the aspect of having to wait for that for everybody, backers or even us internally, it's sort of the nature of having such a kind of open, raw development process, because we don't have any buffer. We basically sort of tell people where we're at. You can read our monthly reports and you can see, everybody reports on exactly what they're doing. I mean, we give more detail than I ever gave when I was working, at Origin or EA, or working at Digital Anvil and doing stuff for Microsoft. So we don't really have any kind of room to maneuver in the way that a publisher won't give a date until it's got the game to a certain level. And I think that's fine. I think most of our backers understand that. But occasionally some people don't, and then occasionally people can read things like delayed indefinitely and think things are cancelled, which it isn't. So I mean, we're working hard, and it's going to come out. I think it's going to be it's going to be the first stage, but I think it'll be something that it's definitely going to be different than, say, Call of Duty or something like that. Right. But it's definitely the sort of fundamental, one of the major glues of Star Citizen, because you can wander around in first person, you can get involved in combat on ships, you can EVA across to them and do all that kind of stuff. So with some of the changes you're talking about from a traditional FPS, like the viewpoint of the camera, is that stuff you're having to go into CryEngine and
and sort of rework some things to implement all of that. I guess it's
no, we've actually done that. I mean, because we've been working on the FPS for quite a while. So I mean, we showed it back at PAX Australia, and we were working on it we started working on it sort of the beginning of that, just before. So in 2013, towards the end of it, we started working properly on the FPS aspects. And then we showed the first iteration at PAX Australia, which was, I believe, November 1st or something in Australia last year. And then we showed sort of an update to it at PAX East, which was in March. So we've been doing a bunch of work under the hood to the system, because inherently CryEngine is sort of built to be separate between first and third person. So we've done a lot of work to unify it. We've also done a lot of work to add these sort of extra sort of bridge animations in there in a way that, I mean, they didn't have, like the jukes and all that kind of stuff hasn't been in Crysis and stuff like that. So there's a lot of work that's gone under the hood. And hopefully when people get to play it, they'll sort of appreciate and see that. But yeah, it's a big challenge. And then the other issue is we have to do that in such a way that, the system's not standalone. So it works inside the game. So when you get Star Marine, it's got Arena Commander and flying around in space, and all the stuff of moving around is the same stuff that's used for when you're in your spaceship and get up and walk around your spaceship or get out in EVA. So it's all one system. So it is always more complicated, because whenever we're doing the FPS stuff, we also have to make sure that it's not breaking the other stuff, like the space flight stuff. And it does occasionally, because stuff say we do with the characters can then affect the characters, say, in the spaceships, and then we have to fix that. So it just takes time. But most of the technical stuff's been done now, and now it's really sort of the polished level. And the polished level is very much, that's kind of a feel thing, and that's hard to sort of say, oh well, we can polish it in 2 days or 5 days, because sometimes you iterate on the animation and the feel of it, and you can have something that you solve in a day, and then you have something that takes you weeks to get the feel right, because we're sort of at the point now where it's a bit subjective. So what's the blend between sort of realistic movement inertia and player responsiveness, right? You don't want the player to feel like they're sort of drunk as they're moving around. And so those are all the things that we've been sort of focusing on. But I mean, our goal is to make it as good as we possibly can. And like everything in Star Citizen, it's not, it shouldn't be a second-class citizen. It should be up there with anything else that's a sort of contemporary of it. So those are all the reasons why Star Marine's taking a little longer than we wanted to. But at the end of the day, I think it's, I'm hoping it'll be worth the wait, especially once, down the road we get, all the rest of the elements of the game in, the Persistent Universe stuff, Squadron 42, and it all comes together. I think everyone will see the results of getting these different modules out and then iterating on them and doing it better. Because even when we release Star Marine, that's still, that's like V0, and we've got lots of work and feedback, and we'll keep on improving it and making them better. It's just a process, and we're building a really big game, and it'll take a long time to get it all working properly and to everyone's satisfaction, and probably longer than I would like, and a lot of our backers would like. Everyone wants to play it now, but at the end of the day,
if it works,
well, yeah. And the other thing is, at the end of the day, if you want to play a good game, right? You back something, and I think there's a pretty famous quote that says something like, a delayed game will be eventually good, and a rush game will always be bad, or something like that. I mean, that's the fundamental goal behind it. Is we want to release something that we like, that we think is going to be good, and other people will like, and then we can build on it from there.
Right, seems fair to me. So, the immediate future, it looks like you're a couple weeks out in the least, and then obviously there's no hard date right now. Kind of going through everything and trying to get it fine-tuned so that it works the way you want.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, we're shooting to try to be on the PTU, which is our sort of pre-release publicly to everyone. So backers can get on the PTU, but it's basically a more unstable version. Sort of, enter at your own risk. Sort of in the Gamescom or slightly after Gamescom timeframe, and that's kind of where we're looking to track. So if we're plus or minus there by a week or two, that's kind of where I would expect us to fall out. And that really just depends on trying to knock out some of these last sort of polish issues that we're trying to do for the base FPS.
Right. So that is the FPS module update. We'll have another video on multi-crew.
Yeah.
And
so the headline could be now, FPS is back on.
FPS is not indefinitely
It's not indefinitely delayed, yeah.
Yeah.
FPS is in progress.
So there's the headlines written for me. Check the channel for the next video on multi-crew. And of course, thanks as always for your time, Chris.
You're welcome.
We'll see you all next time.
See you guys.